Welcome in, everybody, to another week of UFL Weekly. I'm Kyle Krajewski, joined by Mr. Beautiful, Zach Cole. Zach, how's it going, man?
It's going very well, my friend. We saw some great football here in week 9 and a lot of interesting things with some of the different quarterback situations and all that good stuff. So I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, me too. We got week 9 quick recaps. Week 10 coming up ahead this weekend. Final week of the regular season, as next week you and I will be meeting to discuss UFL playoffs.
Yeah,
We have
it's
those
crazy that
matchups set already.
we're
Yeah.
here already. It's wild that week 10 and the first week of the playoffs has snuck up on us so quickly.
Yeah, it's been a quick 3 months. I can't believe it's actually been 3 months
Yeah,
of football that we've
right?
had.
Yep.
But it's not over yet. You've got to see our beautiful faces for this week, and especially 2 more weeks after this, maybe three, because we'll do a championship recap.
Yep.
And that's it, folks. Got a few weeks
That's
left here. Uh, we'll obviously, I'm talking as if we're disappearing after this. We'll pop in with any like emergency podcast. We'll probably do a college rookie draft recap. There's rumors of expansion teams being announced soon.
big
If
time.
that is after the season, we'll drop an emergency pod. So post championship recap. Just be an eye out for that UFL weekly video and podcast drop because we've got some big stuff potentially happening this offseason.
Absolutely. Yeah. I before we hop into the weekly recap here, Kyle, I just want to I was scrolling through the XFL page the other day and I was looking at the former teams and everything. And
Oh yeah.
next to the Seattle Sea Dragons, it does not say the couple of them say folded, blah blah blah. Next to the Seattle Sea Dragons says suspended on retainer, which really kind of
Whoa,
that's interesting.
that's interesting.
The Sea Dragons would be a great re-addition to this league. I think it would kind of expand the league west a little bit, which I think it needs, and maybe I don't know. Selfishly, maybe we'll get a Philly or a New York team back that we could go and support a little more.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's been additional rumors of things going on of because the UFL specifically filed some trademarks for basically long lost teams. However, I will say two of them are local. I started this a little negative. Up here in Pennsylvania, we've got just DC kind of near us, but
Yeah,
the rumors are that it's going to be Seattle and one other. People are very curious on what that one other are. But the UFL actually, we could talk about this news. UFL has recently filed for 4 new trademarks. This doesn't mean that these are happening. It doesn't mean that these will exist or be part of the league. They've just filed for trademarks, so they have them for the Oakland Invaders, the
Ooh.
Philadelphia Stars, Tampa Bay Bandits, and the New Jersey Generals.
You know what?
So for us
I would be
Pennsylvania boys,
very happy with all four of those. Even Tampa Bay and Oakland. Oakland's
yeah,
had it rough for a couple years now. So to give them a team back, I think it would be very a la St. Louis Battlehawks, kind of giving them a team back. You know what
yeah.
I mean? And I
Well,
think that
Oakland
could be
doesn't have a
really
baseball team to go support in the
correct.
spring anymore
Right?
either.
Right? Yeah. They're really down bad out there out there in
Yeah.
Oakland.
They
All right.
they've lost their baseball, their basketball, their football teams. They've all just
And the
poor guys.
UFL is coming in saying
We
Band-Aid
got you.
UFL team. All right. Week 9 recap, Kyle. Let's hop into this before we waste any more time. It was an interesting week. We saw a couple backups play for some contenders. We saw some decent performances. I noticed that there was a lot of downfield passing this week. That was something that really stuck out to me. The
Yeah.
Panthers did their regular ground and pound thing, but even they kind of got in on the action. So starting from the top, the Battlehawks obliterated the Brahmas. The Brahmas' bright spot was kind of their special teams. They had a couple nice returns, some good things there. But Max Duggan was incredible in that game. He was super accurate, finding receivers all over the place, to the point where they even sat him down later on in the game and brought in Brandon Silvers to back him up
Oh
there for a
yeah.
little bit. So that was the first game of the week. Arlington, and again, that final score was Battlehawks 39, Brahmas 13. Arlington came away with a victory in the second game of the weekend over the Memphis Showboats. The Boats were a little disappointing this week, if I do say so myself. We were kind of expecting a little bit more from our Boats, baby Boats, but it just did not really pan out for them. Um, EJ Perry was not great. Dresser Wynn came in this one also. And we saw Luis Perez do regular old Luis Perez things, but it was kind of interesting. They pulled him out for one play, and I want to make sure I have the name. Holton Ahlers came in and threw a touchdown.
Yeah.
And it was a wild touchdown. He like beamed it at a guy's head, and it just like kind of stuck in his hands. Again, Renegades 30, Showboats 12. The third game was the Panthers losing to the Stallions, and what I would probably say was the game of the week. It was awesome. It was back and forth, tight knit game. And Birmingham put up points with about 2 minutes late to take the lead. There were a bunch of lead changes in the fourth quarter. Michigan had a shot at the end zone at the end of the game from, I want to say, maybe their own 15, 20-yard line, and just unfortunately could not convert. Who I'm missing on the Danny Etling was very good in a backup capacity there with Perkins back out again. So it was good to see him. And the final game of the weekend, the Roughnecks actually surprised the Defenders. That was very interesting. Once again, McClendon looked super sharp, and I kind of halfway think the Defenders took their foot off the gas a little bit. We did see Teamu come out of the game, and Delilo was in the game for them as in a backup capacity for a decent amount of the game. They
Yeah, I
had
think he started most of came in for the second half.
they had over 50 pass attempts in this game, and Delilo had 29 of them. So that kind of tells you the tail of the tape right there. But again, McClendon was great. He had 232 yards passing and added some rushing yards on top of that. So overall, pretty exciting week, and we saw some upsets, I would say, with the Roughnecks pulling that one off, and with the Renegades dominating the Boats in the way that they did. I think that both of those were kind of surprising. So anything you want to add into that, Kyle, before we hop into Week 10 preview?
No, nothing more than we got an interesting USFL Conference Championship preview between the Panthers and Stallions as they
Definitely.
face off again next week. To be fair, I mean, obviously an asterisk. I think they both kind of entered that game saying, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
I think they both obviously wanted to win that game, but there's still a lot of like we got to keep our guys safe as best as we can, and we'll kind of see
Yeah.
that with this first game of Week 10.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what Kyle's alluding to, the XFL Championship. We get a preview in Week 10 of the game that's going to be happening in the first round of the playoffs.
Preview.
And that is the St. Louis Battlehawks taking on the DC Defenders. That is our Friday night game this week. It is an 8 o'clock kickoff. Again, Battlehawks sitting at 7-2, coming off a dominant win behind Max Duggan and the gang. And DC coming off a loss. They probably should be sitting at 7-2 also, but you could see they kind of prioritize resting some guys a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see the strategy in this game. St. Louis is currently favored, despite being the away team, at minus 1.5 points, and the over/under is set at 42.5. So again, the key storyline is that this is an XFL conference preview, and that could kind of set up some interesting scenarios moving forward. Kyle, do correct me if I'm wrong, but this is going to be played in St. Louis regardless of the winner, correct?
Yep.
Yep, we established that last week. So they are kind of playing for home field advantage, quote unquote, but it will still be in St. Louis regardless of whether DC wins or St. Louis wins. So Anthony Becht, head coach for the Battlehawks, did come out and say that the key players are going to dress, but playing time might be up in the air. I mean, we saw guys like Butler, Duggan, Sailors all kind of rest in this past week's game. So I could see something similar happening. Maybe not putting them on the shelf completely, but getting them in there, get some action, and then probably having a short leash on them and get them out of the game. And DC is probably expected to do something pretty similar where we saw Teamu pulled out of the game pretty early. He is listed as the QB3 coming into this week, where we'll probably see Delilo or someone else step into this game and get the start. He was pretty good, and I think that that's got to give DC some confidence. God forbid anything happens to Teamu, but it was good to see a backup step in and not really have a major downfall as he came into this game and took over. So again, it's an interesting game because we don't really know who we're going to see in this game, and I think that's why the line is probably set so close. And they're also two pretty evenly matched teams. But Kyle, I want to hear where your thoughts are at. Again, St. Louis is favored 1.5 points and by 1.5 points, and the over/under is 42.5.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see slightly similar, I guess, keys of thought from coaching staffs going into this game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the depth chart is drastically different. Specifically pointing out Teamo being listed as QB3.
Yeah.
But head coach Shannon kind of said he wants to see Teamo out there to kind of keep him in a rhythm, but it's possible that this week of practice he saw and spoke with Teamo and was just like, you know what? We may not see you out there. So it's possible we don't see Teamo play at all. Whereas I think Beck very much we'll still see Duggan, Sailors, Butler, etc. all play, whether it's a quarter, whether it's a drive, to some extent. I do think we'll see a very strong and early rotation of the running back room. And then I think Brandon Silvers is going to step in and just sling it when he can. Um, I think Silvers is a guy, a spring football historian here, uh, been around for a bit, been around for a few teams. So I think he'll kind of try to bring his name back into the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
find a team next year too. All that to say, I think St. Louis wins this one. I think they are. I feel like their rotation is going to be more starter heavy, kind of giving them a little bit of an edge there. So I kind of like this St. Louis -1.5. So I'll take that. But I think we're gonna see a lot of overs this week, as we've clearly been seeing in the past few weeks. But I think this week especially, as teams are just you mentioned it in the recap, we're gonna see a lot more slinging it,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more deep balls, trying new things. I think we're gonna see that a lot. So give me St. Louis -1.5 over 42.5.
Yeah, I think I'm going to ride with you on the St. Louis. Actually, I think I'm going to ride with you on both picks. My thought process behind that is I think St. Louis's backups are better than DC's backups, just from what we
Yeah.
saw in Week 9 here. I loved what Brandon Silvers was doing. Kevon Latulis was incredible running the ball for the Battlehawks and Jarvion Howard. He's probably like that fringe two guy where he's going to get reps regularly. He's not going to get rep. You know what I mean? He's in the middle ground there. But the two of them combined for 120 on the ground and 2 touchdowns. They were just pounding the ball
Yeah.
down San Antonio's throats. And on top of that, their receiving core is just ridiculously deep. I mean, Jakor Pearson was incredible. Hakeem Butler was incredible.
Always is.
Darby had a couple catches. Like they were just doing whatever they wanted with San Antonio. So I do like St. Louis to come away with this win. So taking them by -1.5 feels pretty safe to me.
Sorry for the viewer and the listener if this comes through. Somebody's weed whacking like right alongside my little room right here.
How dare they?
I don't even know who it is. I can't see him. It's like right here. So apologize if it comes through, but thank you for following my picks, Zach.
You're welcome.
Next game of the week, our lone Saturday game at 3 p.m. We have the Houston Roughnecks taking on the Michigan Panthers. This is a 4-5 Roughnecks team facing a 6-3 Panthers team. Panthers are playing backups, kind of very much like stating that they're playing backups or like resting pretty heavily this game. Michigan won their last matchup in week 8 just 2 weeks ago. They won 30-18. But again, Michigan, per Mike Nolan, Rocky Lombardi's getting plenty of reps. He may not be the starter. I think we're going to see most likely Danny Etling be the starter. Again, a lot of these players only get paid if they dress. So that's why a lot of these guys aren't like sitting. They are, they're
Mm-hmm.
dressed, they're playing. But obviously, a lot of these teams, these coaches want to be mindful of that. They want to be mindful of their health for the playoffs, and they also want to just be caring about their starters. Um, so we'll most likely see Etling start the game. I think if Perkins is healthy, he may be the starter, but there's been no word on that, and I hope that they keep a little bit more caution there and get Perkins, just make sure he's 100% for playoffs because he's the guy when he's healthy. Also, COC Mariner quietly leads the league in receiving yards after a really, really strong 114 receiving yards last week. So, COC, we see you. Heck yeah, dude. Houston, we've gotten no word presently as of recording. We'll probably get news in like an hour, as we usually do on these mornings we record. But no word on what we see in the depth chart, what this roster will look like. I'm hoping we see more McClendon. I don't see why they would step away from McClendon. It's not like last week was a meaningful game to them, but I think the fans want McClendon. Let's see McClendon. Justin Hall had another fantastic 10 reception game last week, 126 receiving yards. Also slowly making his way up the receiving yards leader list. I think he's presently in 4th. So Houston, praying for you. Please play McClendon. We love him. All that to say, Michigan is favored here at -6. Over under set at 43.5. We've got some high over unders here this week. Zach, how you think this game shakes out?
So I actually think that Houston is going to cover the spread, and I feel pretty good about that pick. So I'm going to take Houston +6. McClendon is really good, and I feel like I'm a broken record saying that over and over, but there's a reason that they've strung together these 4 wins later on in the season. I mean, I think they opened up 0-3 or something along. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but they've been very good the last couple weeks, and playing probably 4-2 ball over the last 6 weeks or so, and that's because Jalen McClendon has stepped in and has started commanding this offense. So Justin Hall, as you mentioned, is just a dominant force for them as well. I think that they like to keep games close, and I think that with Michigan on a more backup-oriented lineup is probably not going to be as dynamic as we typically see them be. Again, maybe we see COC Mariner for and I almost said an inning or two. I'm in baseball mode. A quarter or two. Maybe we see Toa Tua for a couple games, or Toa Tawa. I'm sorry, for a couple. I keep wanting to say innings, man. A couple
Drives.
quarters, a couple drives. Yeah, I'm in between baseball and football mode here. But I don't think we're going to see these guys for a full length game, and I think that that's going to open the door for Houston. So with all that being said, I do think that Michigan will still put up enough points to cover this over. So I'm going to go over in this game, despite it being a little bit on the high side. So again, give me Houston +6. Give me the over 43.5.
Beautiful. I'm going. You went the over?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm joining you on both. This is going to be a rough week. It's going to be a rough week. Very similar picks. I think we kind of know who these teams are, especially as we come into this last week. But we said that the past few weeks. But I will note that I've been the one doing really well these past few weeks. Zach, you've been floating at 500.
Yeah.
Last week I went 5-3. You went classic 4-4.
Yeah, sounds about right.
You need to go 500 on the week, Zach, on the season, on the regular season. You, my pal, need a
7 in 1 week, right?
Yeah, you need a 7 in 1 week to get above 500. I'm sitting at 500 right now. I'm 35-35, so I just need a positive week. So who knows? If we keep copying our picks, maybe we have a great week.
Yeah, my 1-7 in week 5 is really pulling me down.
Oh yeah, that didn't help you. But yeah, following you, Houston +6, over 43.5.
Beautiful. I don't think much needs to be said about that one.
Nope.
Very similar to our third game of the weekend, which is between 2 non-playoff teams. Unfortunately, I believe it is our only matchup that does not feature a playoff team. This is Arlington at San Antonio.
No, I'm wrong. You're right. Sorry.
There is that's all right. We have the Panthers in one game and the Stallions in the other game. So this is the only one of the weekend that does not have a playoff team, and this is a Sunday afternoon. We have the Sunday doubleheader this week. Typically, we've seen the Saturday, but this one is a Sunday doubleheader. Sunday, June 1st, 12 p.m. kickoff. The Renegades at the Brahmas. Arlington is sitting at 4-5, coming off a decent win against the Showboats last week to push their record a little more towards that 500 line. And San Antonio is still trying to figure things out, sitting at 1-8 on the season. unfortunately coming off a loss in week 9. So Arlington is favored, kind of not surprisingly, by 5.5 points, and the over-under is set at 41.5. Arlington did win when these two played all the way back in week 1. A lot has changed from that point, and that score was 33-9. It's probably going to be what you think the game is going to be, where we see Arlington as being a little bit more of a put together team than San Antonio is. Excuse me. San Antonio was, like I said, particularly sharp on special teams this past week, which I think was definitely a bright spot for them. But for them to take a step forward, they need Kellen Mond to kind of do more than just manage the heck out of the game. He's putting up 100 yards passing. He's not turning the ball over, which is a bright spot. I don't think he had an interception last week. No, but he had 103 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and that's just not going to win you a lot of games. Jay Sean Corbin was the highlight for the Brahmas last week with 85 yards rushing and a touchdown. But again, they need something more out of their quarterback play, out of their receiver room than just 100 yards passing. So on the opposite side, though, Arlington was particularly pretty good in week 9 against the Showboats. Again, the Showboats are a little down this year, I would say. So it wasn't super surprising to see them have a good performance. Luis Perez did Luis Perez things, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Day Hunter was good. They had a bunch of guys with a bunch of catches. Also, Tyler Vaughns had 8, Deontay Burnett had 4, and a bunch of other fellas came in with 21 total catches in the game. The one highlight I thought was pretty cool was Marquette King had a fake punt in this game that went for 37 yards.
Yeah.
He's in the stat sheet as a rushing leader. He was their second leading rusher of the game, and I almost had to double take because I was watching it. I was like, dude, that looks like a running back. And then one guy swiped his leg and he went down. I was like, oh, what kind of running back does that? And he got up and it was Marquette King, and I was like, oh my god. So that guy's a unit. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
So. I guess good for Arlington there. So all this is to say that this is a matchup between two teams that aren't really playing for anything. San Antonio is still trying to figure it out under Coach Pardee. Kudos to him stepping in a tough situation and making the most of it. I saw they did an in-game interview with one of their quarterbacks, and it was like a 1 or 2 yard gain. He's like, "That's what we need, positive yards." So he's got the boys' mentalities right down there in San Antonio. But Kyle, all this is to ask you: Arlington is favored minus 5.5 points. Over under is 41.5. What do you got?
You know what? I'm going to be a little fun here. I'm going to take San Antonio plus 5.5.
All right.
This is a personal preference pick. I would like to see San Antonio turn on some jets this week. Last week of the season, all bets are off.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see it, San Antonio. We could have said this last week, but I'm saying it for this week, final week of the season. Yeah, I still think Arlington's still going to win this, but I think San Antonio tries to keep it close. Kind of keeps it, and if we see any close game between these two, it's going to be within that 5.5. So sticking with San Antonio 5.5. Give me the over. We see some points. I think we're seeing a lot of overs this week, strictly because we're just going to see airing it out across the league. As we saw last week and as we've kind of progressively seen week by week. But this week in particular, I think we can expect some yardage, some points. Let's see it.
So I'll go opposite of you here, Kyle. I'm going to go Arlington minus 5.5 on this one. I do think Arlington is much better, and I think that Luis Perez gives them quite an edge in this game. Just the quarterback difference alone is substantial. So give me Arlington minus 5.5, and I will also go with the over for the sole reason that there was 42 total points when they played in week 1, and I'm just going off of that, and the over under is at 41.5. So give me the over.
Not too shabby. Final game of the week here, we have the Birmingham Stallions already with the shot in the playoffs next week, facing against the Memphis Showboats. I almost said Minnesota for some reason. Memphis Showboats, Birmingham Stallions, Sunday at 3 p.m. Stallions are 6-3, Showboats 2-7. Birmingham is favored here at minus 6.5. Over under set to 38.5. Memphis won this game last time they faced off week 5. Memphis won 24-20. But Birmingham head coach Skip Holt says he's playing to win no matter what. This is a guy who just he loves what this league stands for, and his post game comments last week were like, "We're gonna win no matter what. It's good for the league, good for the players." So that's his mentality. So I don't
Love
expect them to take any gas off the pedal. I said that last week. I don't any whatever.
it.
They're laying down some points. So we can expect reigning offensive player of the week, Jamar Smith, to get the start again this week, as I think Birmingham is still figuring out their quarterback room for the playoffs. I know McGuff is getting healthy, is no longer an IR. So if he's healthy for this game, perhaps they split some halves here.
Mhm.
But Jamar Smith last week, 306 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Fantastic week. On the Memphis side, Dresser Wynn's getting the start this week. Team sees him as the quarterback for the future. That's the current coaching staff, at least. And again, it is an interim head coach. So unsure if that is future for Memphis, but they like Dresser Wynn. They're starting him this week. Jonathan Adams was dealing with the hamstring issue this past week. So his availability this week seems shaky. Again, we do not have the depth chart yet. We do not know if he's playing, but that was one guy I specifically wanted to call out. I think he's one of their better skill position players. So
Definitely.
unsure if we see him this week. So Zach, Birmingham lost this one last time, and they're favored at -6.5. Over under set 38.5. What you got for us today?
I feel pretty confident with you just saying what Coach Holtz mentioned there. He's playing to win. Memphis is not doing too hot recently, so give me Birmingham -6.5. I will take that all day, and especially if they're keeping Jamar Smith in there. He was slinging the rock last
Yeah.
week, so if they're keeping him in there, I feel pretty confident about that. And I'm going to go no, we'll make it a sweep. I'm going to go over 38.5. Give me the over. It's one of the lower ones of the week, so clearly they're a little questionable of the Memphis offense, of the Birmingham offense, whether they might be sitting people. I'm thinking that's where Vegas's head is, but I'll take the over in that no matter what.
Yeah, I think I'm going to join you. I think, let me confirm. This week 5 game between these two was the first game we saw Dresser win this season. So maybe Dresser Wynn is the key to offense for this Memphis team. So I'm taking, you know what? I'm taking Memphis +6.5. Whether
right.
they come away with the win or keep it a little bit closer. I mean, they won by 4 in their last matchup, so these two teams can have a close game. So give me Memphis +6.5, but I'm with you. Give me the over. I'm not too afraid of Birmingham. I mean, obviously they want to win, but I could totally see Memphis going out there. Same mentality. Let's win this last game of the season.
Yep.
So I'm taking the over. So Memphis +6.5, over 38.5. We finished the week with these picks with 2 separate picks. I've got this Memphis +6.5, and I have San Antonio +5.5 in the game before. And you've got the favorites in those.
We shall
Good
see.
luck, Punk.
Kyle, before you hop into the wrap up, I just really want to quick shout out the defensive player of the week and the special teams player of the week. We mentioned Jamar Smith for offensive player, but both actually come from the this week's Arlington San Antonio game. Defensive player of the week was Donald Payne, outside linebacker for the Renegades, and
Oh, yeah.
special teams player of the week was running back Jaden Sheridan for the Brahmas, who had a couple big returns in that game. So shout out to those two guys. We usually like to drop the players of the week, so forgot to mention them.
Shout out you, player of the week. Players of the week.
Players.
No DFS notes. I don't have full depth charts, so I've got nothing right now. But as this video releases, this podcast drops, look for it in the description. And you'll see my comments there.
Excellent.
So that's week 10 coming up this weekend for you guys. Looking forward to a fantastic week. Should be a good one. I think we're going to see a lot of rotation here and players starting and playing, and I think that's good for us at least. I like to see players show themselves off when they get the opportunity.
Definitely.
It's not often you get that until these final weeks, and you get the guys like DC's Mike DeLillo. I mean, let's see it, brother. So thank you for tuning in. If you're watching us on YouTube, you could find us on all podcast platforms. If you are listening to us, you could find us on YouTube. Just search UFL Weekly and you should find us. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here all season. We look forward to recapping Week 10 and previewing playoff games next week.
Playoffs.
Playoffs. So again, thank you. Talk to you next week.
See you.